Hello and welcome to It's Only Electric. This will be my initial test drive and review of the brand new Alpine A390. And I'm here in Marbella, south of Spain, and I'm really excited to be able to share my thoughts, my experience with this specific car.
It's only electric.
So before we deep dive into the specifications, let me walk through some of the history of the brand Alpine. I mean, it started back in the 1950s, where a guy actually rebuilt a classic Renault 4CV for racing purpose. After that, Renault bought the brand, so it's fully owned by Renault today. And the real breakthrough actually came together with the iconic race car called A110. That's exactly this color they used back then, metallic blue, beautiful color on this car. And this is also where the A390 comes into play, because you can really see the similarities. It's very inspired by the silhouette of the A110. The Alpine A390 is a mid-sized sport fastback measuring 4.6 meters in total length with a wheelbase of 2.7, curb weight 2.1 tons. So it's built on the AMP R medium platform, the same platform as Renault Scenic, but it's heavily modified to be able to fit the purpose of the car. First off, it has 3 motors, 2 permanent magnet motors at the rear, 1 synchronous motor without permanent magnets at the front. But it comes in 2 different trim levels. The first one, this is called GT. Then you have a sportier version, a more powerful version called GTS. Both of them does come with the same drivetrain, but with different outputs. So the GT version has a combined output of 295 kilowatts, 400 PS, 661 Newton meters of torque. It does 0 to 100 in 4.5 seconds with a top speed of 200 kilometers per hour. On the other hand, we have the GTS version with a combined output of 345 kilowatts, 470 PS, or 825 Newton meters of torque. That one does 0 to 100 in 3.9 seconds with a top speed of 220 kilometers per hour. When it comes to range, charging and battery, it has a NMC pack with a net capacity of 89 kilowatt hours that goes for both versions. The WLTP range is spanning from 500 up to 555 kilometers, and it's most depending on the wheel size you go for. This specific car has the extra equipped 21-inch wheels with Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, so it's a bit more energy consuming. So this has the range more to the lower number of 500 kilometers. When it comes to charging, it has the charge port placed here at the right front fender with a DC charge capacity depending on the trim level. So the GT version comes with 150 kilowatts as a peak power. It charges from 10 to 80% in around 30 or 30 minutes, whilst the GTS version has a faster capacity of 190 kilowatts, 10 to 80% in around 27 minutes. When it comes to home charging, AC charging, slow charging, you can choose between the standard range of 11 kilowatts and the extra equipment of 22 kilowatts. Of course, 3-phase support on both options. Design-wise, this is a really good-looking and sporty-looking car. I mean, especially here in the front, you see it's kind of an aggressive-looking car with the big Alpine text here at the front. On top of that, you actually have a front-facing camera for the park assist functionalities, daylight running lights crossing the whole front of the car. Here down below, you have the actual headlight unit. In between, you also have some DRL accents, creating kind of a dynamic look of the car. Air vents at the sides, and whilst talking about air vents, you have an air spoiler here at the front for better aerodynamics. So a lot of sportiness in focus here from Alpine, but also efficiency. So they have worked a lot on the aerodynamics and the efficiency of the car, and you can tell by looking at the shape. So under the bonnet there is unfortunately no frunk. It's filled up with stuff, and it comes with a heat pump as a standard, and that's always a good thing for efficiency. As I said, not only sportiness but also efficiency in mind here. Moving over to the rear end of the A390, this is a really beautiful angle, especially if you have a look here at the fastback design. The rear glass is really blending into the contrast black roof design. This is extra, by the way. It does come with the body color as a standard, but I would really go for the black roof line because this makes it look a bit more sporty, and you see the flow here, tying the roof together with the small ducktail here at the end. Kind of a double ducktail design here. The rear end is really sporty looking. If you see here, the graphics of the lights with a illuminated Alpine logo inside. Underneath that, the big badge saying A390 GT at the central spot. I mean, this is a nice silhouette. This is a nice looking car. You also have this arrow-shaped tails here at the sides. Everything tied together with a big air diffuser at the lowest part of the car. Parking sensors, of course, a rear-facing backup camera. Here at the back, let us check out the practical aspects. A powered liftgate, a total storage capacity of 532 liters. You have some extra organizing space here for your charge cable. Split foldable seats into two parts, 60/40. They fold flat, but with a loading lip. So first off, you have this load lip, and then you have the second one when the seats are folded. But a decent storage capacity. And as I said, unfortunately, there is no frunk in this case, so this is what you get. A good thing though is that you can add a tow hitch with a tow capacity of 1,350 kilograms. And that's a good thing. I mean, you have a GT car with a tow hitch, so it's still practical. Let's check out the interior and start with the front seat this time. Door closing sound, frame doors, solid sound. That's nice. A solid build. Soft touch materials, Alcantara inlays, ambient lighting, so soft touch for the top part. Armrests, semi-cushioned, a bit too hard I would say when you drive it for longer trips. A very cocoony feel here, so the sportiness with the low roofline, kind of small windshield at the front, and also very limited sight backwards. But it gives you a sporty feel. Also the Renault layout of the screens, also cocooning you in, very driver oriented with the angles of the 12-inch central media screen combined or companioned with a instrument cluster of 12.3-inch running Android Automotive, which is really good. You have all the functions you need, and a lot of menus and functionality, applications, etc. This is a nice layout and a nice setup of the software. Material wise, on top here, not cushioned, but kind of leatherette feel with stitching for the sportiness. Also a addition of carbon fiber and ambient lighting, so the Alpine logo here on the dash is illuminated. You have manual air ventilations almost hidden into the design of the dash. The Alcantara roof, the black Alcantara roof, is also extra. I think it comes with gray or a lighter toned Alcantara fabric as a standard. No glass roof, still plenty of headroom. And when it comes to the steering wheel, this is one of the more exciting parts of the interior. This blue Alpine logo is not standard. I think it costs like 100 euros extra, but I would definitely go for it because it lifts the steering wheel and it makes the interior look a bit more interesting, because you have a lot of nice details on the steering wheel. You recognize the control parts. To the right you have the media controls, but also a favorite button and the content toggler for the instrument cluster. To the left you have the driving aid functions. Underneath that you have a blue toggler or a rotary device, and that's actually the adjustment of the regenerative braking. That's very handy. So if you turn it most further to the left 4 times, you will have the one pedal drive active, because that's also now part of the Alpine brands, as you see in the newer Renault R5 and R4. To the right you have a drive mode selector. You press it to toggle between the different drive modes, and you have a couple of them. Save as the eco mode. You have normal, sport, personal, and track. Track is also something new. It's more adapted to the Alpine 3-motor setup. So that's exciting to test that out. Another nice add-on is the OV red button here on top of the right control part. That's the overtaking button. So instead of doing a kickdown on highway to pass other cars, you just press that, hold that up to 10 seconds, and you will get the immediate power without flooring the accelerator. You just need to touch it and you get all the power immediately. That makes it a bit more convenient, a bit more easy to do overtakes and to like utilize all that 400 HP. So let us continue. We have the on and off button for the screen. You have the volume controls here, touch buttons on side of the screen, on the side panel or inside the bezels. Underneath that you have this control panel for controlling almost everything regarding the AC, the climate control. You have 2 zones, so you can adjust the temperature, the ventilation, set it to auto, etc., and also like defrost the windows. Everything is controlled from here, so you don't need to toggle around on top of the screen. You have the hazard lights, you have the lock and unlock button. Underneath that you have 2 USB-C ports, both for power and data, and a hidden or cocooned Qi charger, and this nice sporty wing design with the carbon fiber details and the gear selector, because you don't have this Renault gear selector. I think this looks better. It's not as intuitive, takes time to get used to, but you have 3 separate buttons, 1 drive, 1 neutral park, and 1 reverse. So this is the things you use for changing the gear of the car. You have 1 single non-adaptive cup holder. It's a bit narrow, so for smaller cans. This is kind of a disappointment. This is the key, and they're actually using the old, like Renault Zoe key. This has been around for a while. I think they should replace this to something more good looking. At least I have had change at the back. It says Alpine, kind of a textured layout, but still plastic, so it feels a bit fiddly. Let me put that back into the pocket. Armrest cushioned, good feel on that. Split section here with some storage, very narrow, because the area here is very narrow. The car is not that wide, so you don't have that wide of a interior. But it's a good position of it, and it doesn't give me any elbow pain. So storage-wise, you have this central compartment here underneath with plenty of storage and a 12-volt outlet. You have the door pockets for storing bottles, etc. You still have a traditional glove box. So there is plenty of storage inside the cabin here. And the seats, this is the standard Alpine seats. I love the color, the contrast between the white and the blue color, and this tricolor French flag saying A390, the mix of the leatherette and the Alcantara. It's nice. And this is kind of a sport seat setup. You have some bolsters on the sides. They are not active, they are not adjustable, they are static. A bit wide, I would say. You don't get that really sporty contact with the seats, especially not the seating position. They could have gone for even sportier seats. But this also tells me that it's not super sporty. I mean, one thing is the drivetrain, the 3-motor setup. Another thing is like the suspension, the cabin noise, and the seats. I think the purpose is more to create a more versatile car that's sporty, but at the same time practical and comfortable. This specific car is equipped with the premium sound system in a cooperation with DVLE. It's a 850 watt setup, 12 speakers, one subwoofer. It's very finely tuned. I had a chat with the sound engineers that both built the sound, the engine or the motor sound, but also tuned the sound system. So it's very fine tuned, it's very driver oriented, but it's dynamic, it's nice, it has a lot of details, especially when you try the different ambience modes like fidelity or space is the ones I prefer. If you want to have it in a more like hip-hoppy or bass heavy system, you put it into heavy, it gives you more bass. But all in all, it's not super powerful in the higher volumes, but you still have a warm sounding sound combined with a lot of details. It can play most of the different music styles and at the same time represent this like podcasty or news oriented sound profile too. If you set it to speech, you have a really crisp mids and highs too. So warm sound with the capability of producing a lot of details. Let's move over to the back seat. This is my first time here at the back. Is of course a bit cramped for me. I am too tall for sitting here in the back seat. 6'4", 193 centimeters tall. It will be hard to use the central spot, and it's fairly high, probably not the best spot for putting someone in. The front seat is adjusted after my driver position. My feet is not really possible to squeeze underneath. I can, but it's really is not that much of a room because the seat is in the lowest position. Headroom, there is okay of headroom despite having this sloping roofline. Still better than I thought. I'm feeling the headliner, but it's really not a problem. You can adjust the height of the headrest and thigh support. I mean, it is what it is. The central spot is a bit higher and probably not meant for someone to sit in. So it's more of a two-person back seat. You can travel 3 kids here. You still have the ambient lighting, the same kind of materials at the top parts, a bit more hard plastics here compared to the front, but still okay, I would say. Cushioned armrest, some storage here in the door bins, some storage here at the back rest. You have the central compartment consisting of 2 manual air ventilations, a toggler for closing it and opening it. On top, a logo, Alpine logo, and here underneath towards the floor you find 2 USB-C ports for charging your phone. ISOFIX connectors conveniently placed with some lids, and a nice design also here at the back with this blue accents and the different materials. The mix between Alcantara and leatherette makes it look a bit more premium. You don't have any central armrest, but you have a central headrest, so you can't rest your right arm in this position actually. So well, on the inside, driving the A390, this is the GT version, so the lower spec or less powerful version, still running the 3-motor setup, putting out 400 horsepower, 661 Newton meters of torque, or 295 kilowatts. Does 0 to 100 in 4.5 seconds. Instead of 3.9 that we have in the more powerful version. And that's the first time on this platform, so they have worked a lot on the platform to adapt it for this setup. And they also have a unique solution for the torque vectoring called AATV. That's the Alpine Active Torque Vectoring, and that's simplified for handling the 2 motors at the rear to be able to put the right amount of power to the right motor at the right moment. So that's quite a equation to make that work. And according to Renault or to Alpine, they have really put a lot of effort into getting that right to give you the right type of feeling. So the suspension is tuned by Renault's Le Mans teams, running on passive dampers and classic steel suspension. It's somewhere in the middle, not too sporty, not too soft, I would say. It handles highways good. The vertical travel is not too quick, not too harsh. If you compare it to a Tesla Model Y, for instance, that's actually the latest car I tested. That's the standard version. That one almost feels a bit harder, depending on the wheel setup, of course. So it's not super sporty, this one. You can use it in all conditions, I would say. It's a very good traveler on road trips too. And I feel that in corners, it keeps the car fairly steady. The body roll is not that much. It's a fun car to drive. But I think going for the GTS version, it may not feel sporty enough. That's my initial feeling. Maybe you are expecting some even sportier feel to it, but that's not really the setup of the car. But with that said, it still hides the weight. I mean, 2.1 tons, it's a heavy car. Maybe not as heavy as other cars on the market. It still has a fairly big battery pack. And it doesn't feel that heavy actually. And partly, of course, that's due to all the power, but also the suspension setup. But another point that helps the car feel nippy is the steering. I mean, the steering is very direct. There is a good feel to it, and now it's on the harsher setting or torquier setting, so it's a more fun and engaging way of driving it. I think you hear the sound. This is the active Alpine sound profile. You can turn it off. There is also another sound profile that's more spacey. So this one is a bit more to the roaring side. Let's walk through the more traditional things like the drive modes and the regen. First off, you have a blue toggler here to the left side, lower side of the steering wheel. And you have this new generation of regen, as you see in the Renault cars. So you have 3 different levels. This is the coasting one. As you see, it's empty, the icon of the regen. I would say it's almost coasting, but you still have permanent magnet motors at the rear. So you won't get a 100% coasting mode if you don't decouple the motors. Level 1, slightly more regen than in the lowest mode, and then you had the mid mode. It's as it sounds, nothing more specific. And in the maximum mode, it's fairly aggressive. It's precise. It takes a bit of a time to engage the regen. It doesn't come immediately as in some manufacturers. Slight delay, like maybe half a second before it kicks in. If you turn it once more to the left, you heard that beep. That's the beep for the activation of the one pedal driving. And we have had some discussions here about one pedal driving. I'm a fan of one pedal driving. Felix is not. I think it's a thing you get used to. Some people tend not to like it because you need to use your right foot all the time, because you always adjust the regen and the accelerator constantly, because if you let it go, I mean, it will kick in immediately and it will create some unpleasant driving or riding for your passengers. But with that said, let me bring it to a full stop. I don't have any car behind me. I mean, full stop, and it's a very linear and nice feel to the regen. I have tried that on the Renault 5, for instance. Works very similar to that one. Feels a bit stronger on this one, probably because you have the motors at the rear too, helping out here. But a flexible system for Regen, I must say. What you don't have is the adaptive mode. So there is no mode that can adapt to the circumstances, like in traffic, for instance. We also have the drive modes. We have a drive mode selector here to the right side of the steering wheel, and you toggle the different modes to see it on the screen. You have personal, track, save, that's the energy mode, normal, sport. And I always tend to drive the cars in personal, because as it sounds, you can set it to your favorites. Now the motor is set to sport. And on these kind of roads, I think that's the best setting. Then we have something called agility. And this may be one of the parts where the torque vectoring actually works differently, because you have something called normal, sport, and track. And we see a illustration here of how it behaves in a curve and taking a corner. And it looks like in track mode, it's like drifting through the corners. As you may have noticed, there is a red button on top of the right controls of the steering wheel called OV. That's for overtake. So when you press it, you get some extra power. That's nice. You get this kind of star animation on the instrument cluster and a more expressive sound profile when accelerating. And that's for overtaking. As all cars built on the same platform, you have this super button to the left. I love this function. It's the My Safety personal activation. So when you tap it, you will activate your safety profiles, that's including the speed limit warning. So if you want to get rid of the annoying beeps when you travel a bit too fast, even if you shouldn't do that, then the beeping stops immediately. And I have said it before, but it's one of the smartest implementations, I would say, of deactivating or activating your personal safety features. Very clever. So let me try to summarize my experience and my thoughts about the A390 GT. I think this is an exciting car. It's an exciting addition to the current market. Unfortunately, we don't have any release date specific for Sweden yet, but the price point we're looking at currently is 67,000 euros. That's the starting price for the GT version. This car though, with this equipment, you have the bigger wheels, you have the color, you have things like some extra badge costs, some additional equipment, and it ends up at around 74,000 euros. So that's what we're looking at currently. I mean, that's a okay price for such a sporty car, but I think you need to be kind of into the brand Alpine to understand the whole point with the car. You need to like get the history from racing, etc. But with all that said, I think this is a vehicle that stands just in between the super sporty Ioniq 5N, which is very harsh. The soundproofing is gone. It's very hard to drive that car on highways because it's like too sporty, but very engaging. And the Tesla Model Y Performance, that's also very sporty, but not that tuned in some cases. So this one like ends up in between those two cars because you still have this sportiness, and I love the thing like the AATV, the vectoring functionality of the motors for increasing the driving dynamics, and how it uses the three motor setup, especially the rear motors, to adapt depending on the road conditions, depending on how you take the curve. It moves the power from one wheel to the other wheel to create some grip and to create better cornering. That gives the car kind of an extra spice and drive feel compared to the Tesla Model Y, for instance. So it can, in some conditions, feel more sporty, even if the acceleration is not as direct. You don't have that extreme kick in your back when accelerating. It does lose some power over 85 kilometers per hour. You really lose that extra kick in higher speeds. It's really quick out from the line, but then it seems like it loses power. I think this is where the GTS comes in play, because I think that's running a bit of a different battery technology, which means that the total power output is higher on the GTS version from the battery. And that's also how you deliver more power to the motors, a better top speed, and more acceleration after 80, 85 kilometers per hour. That will probably eat up that difference. So if you want even more power, a more performance comparable car to the Model Y performance and the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, then you probably need to go for the GTS version, because this is not as sporty as those two cars. But with that said, this is at the same time very comfortable, probably the most comfortable one among those three cars for long trips, highway driving. The suspension works really good for that. The cabin noise seems to be good. It's a silent and comfortable car. The seats seems to give you a good support on longer trips. So a nice setup. It's not uber sporty, but it gets sporty and it gets very fun when you push it. I'm also glad to see that Alpine, together with Renault, is really trying to do something different. I have said this before when reviewing Renault cars, and this is connected to EU, Europe, and environmental friendly setup, is to produce the cars as much as possible in France, in Europe. When it comes to all parts, the battery packs is assembled here. The cells may still be imported, but still, almost everything is from France or Europe. And that's a good take. And that's really helping the car industry here in the local markets. And I'm glad to see that they really try to push it that way, and try to like help the consumers to buy EU cars. I'm also excited to see kind of a vertical integration between the teams, between Alpine and Renault. For instance, the suspension is tuned by Renault's Le Mans team or Le Mans group, which also, of course, is a good receipt of creating a good suspension. And that's also what we see here. We have a passive hydraulic dampers, a passive suspension with coil springs, but still a suspension that supports the car very good. There's not much body roll, as I said, when driving it, and you still have enough of comfort. I wasn't able to like hit through the suspension. The dampers still managed to handle harsh driving, bumpy roads, potholes, etc. It behaved good in every condition. And it also behaves good at highway. It can sometimes be a bit too quick in the vertical movement, especially when traveling in higher speeds on highways. And it can get a bit too quick sometimes. But all in all, a very good, a silent, and a sporty feel to the car. It's also fun to see the playfulness with the telemetric system. That's the menus for the vehicle dynamics, like the torque vectoring setup, the agility, the power output, the brake power, a lot of data, a lot of live data. And that's, for me, that's very data driven and that loves information. This is something really fun to have. You have the G's, the accelerometer, as I said, the power, the torque vectoring setup under the agility menu. You have a track setting where you see all the temperatures on the brakes, in the tires. The sad thing is that it's not standard. So you need to pay, even if it's a slight amount, you need to pay extra for getting the telemetrics submenu or application. And I think that with a car from Alpine with this DNA, I think that should be included. That things that like differentiate the car from other brands. Why not like use that as a perk for going Alpine? That's all for today. That's all for my initial test and review of the Alpine A390 GT. I hope you enjoyed this video, so please, if you did, engage into the comment section, ask me questions, share your thoughts. Is this your new favorite car? Let me know that, and like, subscribe, and as I always say, stay electric. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.